We'll begin with candidates. Allow you to introduce yourselves, tell us, everyone, a little bit about yourself and why you're running and what you hope to bring to the position. We'll begin right here to my immediate left with Alana Oswald.
Hello, good morning. Is this on?
No.
Okay, we'll work with that. I'm Alana Oswald, and I'm seeking the at-large seat on the Duluth School Board. I've grown up in Duluth all of my life. I went to MacArthur, and then I went to Morgan Park Junior High School, and went on to Denville and graduated in 1991. I went on from there to go to Gustavus Adolphus College and graduated with a psychology degree, and then later on in my life I went and got my teaching license in graduate school at the College of St. Scholastica in the very first cohort of their graduate teaching licensure program, and completed my master's in 2013 in teaching. So that's my educational background. So from that I got my license, and I'm a licensed K-6 elementary teacher and 5-8 science teacher. I work within the district in various positions, from substitute teaching to subbing on the playground and in the cafeteria. I know many schools and subbed in classes, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, including things I had no idea about. Let's see, I work on a committee at the Department of Education for Title I as a parent representative to give feedback on legislative changes to the Title I law. And I'm a plain advocate for kids, my two kids, one's at Denville and one's at Lincoln Park, and I've had to deal with special ed issues and gifted issues with my daughter, and it's time, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Renee Vanette. And I want to just mention we're going to take turns with who answers first, who answers last, so for folks down at the end don't always have to go last. Renee, minute and a half.
Bonjour, good morning. My name is Renee Vanette. I'm an enrolled member of the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, but I grew up and was raised in the Red Lake Band, so two different tribes, different ways of belief. We moved here when I was like 10 probably, and I kind of went to the school district here, and I graduated out of Fond du Lac Ojibwe School. The culture, I needed the culture to keep me what I've already had, so I had to find that. It wasn't in this school district at that time. So I had to go and seek that out and figure out how to solve my own problems, and I did that with the school. I continued on to go to Concordia University St. Paul in Organizational Management and Communications BA degree. I apply that in everything I do in the work I do now. I work at Community Action Duluth as an employment liaison, so I help benefit mothers and families and people seeking employment get jobs. I have a classroom specifically to Native American children. As we know, Native children are the highest rate getting removed in the system. So I try to help combat that with having a classroom and try to create some solutions there. Why am I running? Because I believe that what's already in place is really strong, and I think that I can help strengthen that. And I'd like to have a voice at the table for underrepresented people, for my kids. I'd like to also move forward policy that helps that, and then get community involvement, community buy-in. That's why I'm here.
Thank you very much. David Kirby.
Hello, I'm David Kirby, running for the 2nd District seat. I'm running for the school board because I have been involved in my children's education ever since they were in kindergarten, and both Catherine and Christopher are now at Ordine East Middle School. I have volunteered in their classrooms. I've been active participant in PTAs both at the local and district level, and I've been active in the Think Kids sessions throughout the district. I'm committed to public schools in Duluth and the community. I've lived here almost 20 years, and I'm very aware of how important a strong public education system is to the economic strength of the community and how it contributes to the cultural and other diversity and vitality of the community. My 35 years as a family physician gave me a lot of experience dealing with different cultures, people with different backgrounds, opinions, ideas, and complaints. And I've served on many boards, I've been in leadership positions, and I have a PhD in education, which also gives me some familiarity with many educational issues. I want to utilize all of these strengths and this background to foster on the board what we all want, which is making each student achieve their maximum educational achievement, learning potential, and to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Charles OBJ.
Well, my name is Charles OBJ, and I will be representing District 2 if elected. I want to thank everyone for coming out. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication to the school board, what's going on in the system, and also want to thank every candidate for running. It's a lot of stress, a lot of work, a lot of dedication, really, parents, and community, and I pride myself to doing that. I'm running because we need a strong representation for kids in the district. I have a master's in social work at UND and currently working at St. Louis County as a social worker. What I do is try to educate parents, educate community resources in the community. Folks that I've spoken with and the parents I've spoken with express something concern in the education system that we're not necessarily doing a great job. We have some great initiative, in the school system that is working. We still need some more work to be done. We have low enrollment in the school system, and we need to improve that to get more resources in the school system. I'm a lead member. I serve on our head agency for aging board currently, and it's those experiences I'm going to bring into the school board system. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate, for sharing the microphone. Lauren Martell.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Martell, and I also want to thank you very much for coming out this morning. And I think we've got a great lineup of candidates here, and it's kind of surprising considering some of the problems in the boardroom of recent past. I've been involved in school district issues for quite a few years, and I'm already fairly well known in the city due to that. I'm running because I do think the priorities have been wrong recently. I just think there has been so much money pouring into the district over the past couple of years, but not enough has been going into education. Primarily in the western part of the city, I'm quite concerned about some of the western schools, particularly in Feld. We have a major competitor coming into the marketplace in 2 years. And we graduated fewer students from Denfeld last year than we did before the $46 million was put into the building. So I think that we need some new direction in the board. The same basic group of people have controlled the board now for about 10 years. And I think they've been stuck in one rut, if I can put it that way. And I think we need some new blood in there. And that's why I'm showing up here this morning to talk to you about it, hopefully convince you not to just change the faces in this election cycle, but to actually make a real change in that boardroom November 3rd. Thanks again for coming out this morning.
Thank you very much. Nora Sandstead.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nora Sandstead. I'm running for school board in the 3rd district. I'm running because of Henry and Charlie, who are my 2 boys, who are 2 and 4 right now. And so my life is pretty crazy, as you can imagine, but I see the need for the voice of parents of young children. I've rephrased that from young parents because I don't consider myself a young parent anymore. But I see that as a necessary voice on the board. And I see many years of public education ahead of my children, and I want to ensure that they are getting an excellent education, as are all of our children here in Duluth. And that's why I'm running. I'm running as a mom. I'm also running as a community volunteer. I've been a part of the Chester Bowl Improvement Club for the last 6 years and the volunteer training program for nearly as long. I'm also running as a former teacher. I've got my master's in education, and I taught middle school for 3 years before becoming an attorney. Now I work for the county. That experience as an attorney, I was in private practice doing mainly family law for a few years, and it's given me a lot of opportunity to work in difficult situations and have civil conversations in a respectful manner and bring people together to try to reach an outcome that works best for everyone. So thank you for coming this morning, and I hope you can learn a bit about us and communicate with us in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, candidates. It's been touched on, so why don't we start with that as our first question. A lack of decorum and decency is marked at the Duluth School Board. We assume as a school board member you would be an advocate for civility, but how would you encourage cooperation, respectful disagreement, and the need to work productively with the administration and fellow board members? And Ms. Van Nett, let's start with you.
The best way for me to talk about and talk about the experience I've had in dealing with these types of situations. I was born in adversity. I know what that's like from birth. So going into fast forward to now, I work with the Citizen Review Board, which is a place where we deal with police issues and community issues. So I was the first president of that, and it was relationship, and holding myself accountable to what I'm going to be doing here, or how I can, the bigger picture work. What can I do to make this better? Who will it be better for? And then just firstly holding myself accountable to what I think, and then doing my work. And then the relationships are important. If we don't have some kind of decent relationships with each other, we can't get anything done. So I think that's huge. And then I'm not this big giant blame person. I really want to get, my kids are the focus of what's going on here. Our kids, this community. At some point, we're all going to be gone and our kids will be here. What will that look like? That's where I come from with that thought.
Very good. Moving on to Mr. Kirby, followed by Mr. Obajay.
Thank you. I think that we have not shown as candidates any adverse uncivil behavior towards each other, which is a good start. I was chairman of the Family Practice Department at St. Luke's for 15 years, and there was a lot of discourse and controversy in those meetings, and we seem to handle it quite well. I think we should follow many of the items that were handed out to us this morning. I will also say that I am the parent of 2 adolescents at home, and if you think there's discord in the school board, you ought to come to my house someday. I think I'm well equipped to handle that. Thank you.
Mr. Obajay, followed by Mr. Martell.
Well, it is not news that the school board is not necessarily working well for our kids. We have a dysfunctional school board member that should be representing the district that elected them. My role coming into that would be to be fair-minded, to listen, to work with every school board member, not just picking sides, because we're not elected to go represent a member of the school board. It is very important, that we pay attention, to the situation in the school system right now, and to focus on discussing matters that relates, to our kids and to the teachers that we represent. I listen at my work, I'm a social worker, and I think if you guys know the work that social workers do, is to find solutions, to work with folks that really are in agreement with you, and it's that experience that I bring to the school board if elected. It's very important that anyone that's elected moving forward would work with each member of the school board and not just aligning with some certain people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martell, followed by Ms. Sandstead.
I think that it's a little more complicated. There are sides here, and I think to deny that is to deny reality. I mean, there's a divide running through this city, and it does run through the boardroom. I think that's just a fact. The question really is, can the two sides get along? And I think some real changes have to be made in the boardroom and the way business is conducted. I do believe that the way the procedures are set up are just invite conflict. And one of the things that needs to be changed is the way the agenda is handled. I think those meetings should be open meetings, transparent meetings like the city council is. I think that all board members should be able to attend their own agenda setting sessions, and they should be able to put something on the agenda. We should have a fair and open debate. I think making changes like that are absolutely required to reduce the tension in the room, and I think they would. If I was part of the majority, I would immediately make some moves to change the way business is conducted in the room. I think that would help a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Sandstead, followed finally by Ms. Oswald.
To the question of civility and decorum, like I mentioned before, I'm an attorney and I'm in the county attorney's office, and part of my role has been to, from time to time, inform elected officials that they can't quite get what they want. And I have developed a manner through my practice, starting with working with middle schoolers all the way through 8 years as an attorney to handle situations like that in a respectful manner, to make sure that everybody is heard, to also expect civility in return, and to speak out when that's not happening. And to be clear about that in a way that is respectful, but also sets expectations. And I think that's an important element to bring to the board. I agree that we also need to have transparency and everybody's voice is heard at the board.
Great, thank you. Council?
Like every one of these candidates up here, we've all gotten along great and bonded over our common experiences. I've also had interactions with every current board member, and I have no problems talking with any one of them, even when we disagree. It's okay if you just do it respectfully. I've worked within the schools with parents as part of the past program with the Education Equity Office to help them advocate for their own kids in respectful and good ways, and work through those channels and the systems. And I've even developed a relationship with many people where I get referred to people that are having issues, and I help them find some resolution in very respectful, nice ways. And that's all you gotta do. You have to believe that everything can be resolved, and yet you don't always have to agree, but it will have a resolution and you move on.
Thank you all very much. Roger's question had to do with relationships between school board members and also the school board administration. What about rebuilding the relationship between the district and the community? I think there are still some hard feelings, there's still some resonating from the Red Plan and elsewhere. And Mr. Kirby, we'll start with you, sir.
Well, I think that one of the things we can do is let the public know the positive things that the school district is doing, while at the same time acknowledging that there are many issues that still need to be addressed. Certainly the achievement gap, the disparity in populations between East and West high schools, things like this need to be addressed and can't be swept under the rug. However, the district is doing lots of positive things, is moving ahead as a continuous improvement plan that addresses many of these issues, and I think that we need to show people this is the case, that we're working hard and working together, taking everybody's viewpoints into account, and move ahead with this.
Very good, Mr. Obajay.
I agree with what David said just now, but I think we need to do more, better job at having community buy-in. My platform is based on community involvement and bridging the gap between the community and the school board. And I think we need to do a great job at doing that. I've been going out door knocking, and 90% of what I hear from the families that I speak with has been the distrust between the school board. I mean, they don't trust the school board to make any informed decision. And it's just as simple as that. When you look at the back to school pictures on Facebook or wherever, you'll find that most parents are taking their kids to charter school, to private school, to public school in Irmintown, and that says a lot about the community in Duluth. They don't have any trust in the school board and in the school system because we're not providing the right resources, providing the right education for our children. And I understand that, I sympathize with them. And I think we need to do a great job as a system to get community buy-ins, because that's very important. Because if we have kids, coming back, into the school system in Duluth, we have more resources, we have more funds coming back to the school. The way it is right now, we have low enrollment, and that is a big issue for everyone in Duluth.
Thank you very much. Mr. Martel.
Well, I don't think it's accurate to just describe it as anger. I think there's a lot of people just concerned. I would be hard-pressed to find a single promise made in the selling of the Red Plan that came true. And that has real fallout in this community, and a lot of people are concerned about it. I've run into that door to door as well. They're not just angry, but they're worried about their public education system. They're worried about what we've done. They think we've been on the wrong path. They think money has been wasted that could have gone into the classrooms. And they're just concerned about the fact that we're losing students. We have a big investment here, and it hasn't been going in the right direction. We lost 340 students again last year. That's $3 million of state aid lost again. So I think people have legitimate concerns, and I do think that we have to make more of an effort to reach out to the community on those concerns.
Thank you. Ms. Anstead.
One thing that I've realized throughout this campaign and talking with parents and families and the public is that there is a great misperception about our district. And a major source of that is the reporting that's been going on around what's been happening at the school board level. And so I think improving the image of the school board by increasing civility and the discourse and working towards solutions together, and then really emphasizing that and talking about what we're actually doing instead of all those other things, I think will go a long way towards repairing the relationship with the public. I also think we need to work very hard as a district to attract and retain families who are seeking to move into Duluth and give their kids a great education. And we have some competition in that, and we need to ensure that we're making decisions that will bring in young families who want to put their kids in public school and get a great education for their children.
Thank you. Oswald.
I think we need to focus on what the community needs are from a school district. We often hear about what the district needs, but I also think that the community's voice gets lost in the process because we're so focused on what we need and how to make that happen that we stop listening to the people around us, especially those people that do not have kids or have no vested interest in the school district, but yet they're a part of our community and they can't be ignored. I also think that we need to be more transparent with the amount of information that we let the general public know and why decisions are being made like they are. I don't believe that it is made public a lot of the background information about decisions that are made at the school board level, and I look forward to having a more open discussion about those issues.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bennett.
From experience, being a parent myself and doing equity work with the community, not being heard is a big issue, specifically for parents and community. We want to be heard, we want to be involved with their kids' education. So digging into the community, really going out to them, not expecting them to come to you, that just does not happen. So going out into the community, really talking, take data down, what they're talking about, relay that back, and let's really get real about what's being said. And it's not always nice, and that's all right, because that's how we grow and that's how we learn and move forward. So the kids thing that's already in place and that's already been working, I like that. I like how that works out into the community, but make it more direct, more deliberate, and then bring that back. And once parents feel like their needs are being met and that they are heard, they'll help with stuff that needs to get done. They'll come to board meetings. They'll come and help out wherever their kids are. So really engaging and getting into the community because they're just left out. They're feeling left out, and I felt like that. But luckily for everybody else, I'm just not that kind of person to be left out. So I went in there and just dug in. So I think everybody can do it if I can do it. And I'll definitely pull that in. So from my experience, community is huge. Community, people push money, money pushes policy, and that's how we get some more money rolling in for our kids. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you very much. It's been referenced somewhat obliquely, but let's get right to the question. And we'll start with you, Mr. Auberger. Would you have voted to remove member Art Johnston from the school board?
I think it is the community's decision to do that. I would not do that. I think it's very important for everyone to work together. It is quite important for the board members to agree to disagree and meet each other in the middle. I would not do that. I think everyone has the right to speak out in the board, give out their opinions, and make recommendations. I think that's why the community elected each member to the board.
Thank you. Mr. Martell, what about you in the vote for Art Johnston? Followed by Ms. Anstead.
I don't think anybody would be surprised to say that I wouldn't have voted for throwing Art Johnston off the board. And I also would say that anyone in this town that doesn't know there were underlying reasons for that beyond what was being said are just fooling yourselves. But the fact of the matter is they were trying to annul an election, and I just would never have gone along with that. I think what happened there could have been handled in a better way. I think that it could have been handled with an apology and a handshake. I think that there were political motives that got sucked into the whole thing. But it is unfortunate that it happened. There's no question that it was a black eye for the board. I think it was an unwise decision to go down that path. But it's been done now, and we have to move forward from this point. And I would do everything I could to make that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Anstead, followed by Ms. Oswald.
I would not have voted in favor of removing Art Johnson, and that is because I would have hoped that the attorneys for the board would have sat down with the members ahead of time and said, here's what's going to happen, and here's what it's going to cost the district. And this is going to drag through a year, and it's going to ruin your name in the media. I'm an attorney, and if that had been my job, I would have had to counsel the board that this is what you're looking at, this is what is ahead of you. And if you want to make that choice, you can, but you don't have to. And in the end, whatever occurred to cause that vote to be taken, I don't think it was worth the impact on the board and the district as a whole that resulted from that vote.
Thank you.
No, I would not have voted to remove Art Johnston, mostly because I don't feel I have the authority to speak for his voters. He won an election, and me as one person, I don't believe that I should contradict what the majority of people in his district wanted. I believe that boards should be made up of various personalities and diversity, and those things about people need to be respected. And whether or not they can get along, that's up to the individual people. If we're speaking directly to the incident that happened, I would have hoped that that would have been dealt with civilly, because you still have to work together to get things done. And I feel the lawsuit that happened really detracted from getting things done.
Thank you, Ms. Van
In organizational development, there's a norming, storming, forming kind of thing that happens with board and board work. I think I don't work in that way where we just cast somebody out like that, but I do think we can work on things in that norming, storming to move strategically, to figure out what we need to do and move, because our kids, I'm not gonna be here for 100 years. My kids need to be here, need to figure it out. And so I think in that way about the way cycles work and the way board development works and the way that the district kind of works, we can work things out in that way, and I hope moving forward that we can apply that concept.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
As the doctor in Star Trek used to say, I'm a doctor, not a lawyer. And, I think this has legal aspects to it, and it also has civil discourse aspects to it. I agree with Nora's comments, and I think that if all of this could have been held prior to any legal question, would have been much nicer, using many of the points that were given to us today. It's nice to resolve these issues in a more civil manner. I would hate to use a nuclear option, as some people would call. And although I wasn't there to make the decision, I think that I would have been very hesitant to do so. But I understand that there were two sides to the issue and that many people felt differently.
Thank you.
Very much. I think at least wanted to mention Edison and competition from private schools, et cetera. Edison's decision to build a high school in Duluth certainly brings more competition for students, for families. How should the district approach this challenge? Mr. Martello, will begin with you, sir.
Well, I know that some people have suggested that that they should try to talk Edison out of doing it. That was the first part of the discussion that seemed to arise, and there were a lot of discussions about the board itself and the decision made. But I just don't think you can beat competition that way any more than you can in the business sector. I mean, you can't repress competition. Competition is going to come. You have to be competition by being competitive. And just the fact that we have a competitor ready to open a high school when we spent nearly $500 million with bond interest on our buildings that was supposed to make us the hottest game in town shows that we haven't had the best planning here. But they're going to come, and we have to get competitive. That means we have to put money into what people want in our schools, lower class sizes. We've got to get more teachers into the buildings. We have to give the people, the customer, what they want. We have to make sure that we turn the slide on enrollment around.
Thank you, Ms. Sandsted.
I agree with Mr. Martell that we need to give the people what they want. And what they want is the best education for their children. And I can tell you, as an educator, that there are best practice recommendations for what those things are. And that includes plenty of music, plenty of movement, plenty of art. Those are the things that raise test scores. And people look at test scores, whether or not they're a valid measurement of our schools. I know a number of fellow parents who have chosen to send their kids to charter schools because their kids are going to get foreign language at an earlier age. I would love to send my kids to a school where they're going to get a foreign language starting in kindergarten. I think the second aspect of this, besides attracting and retaining young families in a competitive environment, is to ensure that at the state level we have a fair playground for our schools so that our district, our public schools, are not subsidizing the education in other schools by going into debt because we have to give more money to them than we're receiving from the state.
Thank you. Ms. Vanette.
So the Edison Charter School deal, competitiveness, and what Mr. Martell talked about earlier was about that exactly. I think we're competitive. I think we're right there. I think we just need to strengthen and do some more work within our community and get our parents and families into the situation, get them, pull them in, talk to them about this is really a great place to live. I love living here. I don't know if I said it a trillion times, but I love Duluth, and I want everybody to feel like that. If I can feel like that, then all of our families can feel like that, and that will draw more of our kids and to strengthen the district. So that's how I think about that.
I apologize, Ms. Oswald, I did go out of turn. Apology.
Sure, I'll accept.
This time.
Number one, we need to ensure that all of our children are getting the education that they need. That would include eliminating the achievement gap and working with all our student groups to make sure they're all achieving to the same level. That will attract kids to come back, as long as we can make sure that our statistics and our tests and our programs and our curriculum are all top-notch. With the opening of the high school, that's a potential of 600 students leaving our district. About 150 per grade is what goes to Edison right now, and that's the potential of losing another $9 million. And that's a huge chunk of money that we can use towards repairing what we need. And we have 2 years to do it, and that's why I'm running, is because I know we can make the best education there is in the city, and that's where the competition, you know, to be competitive, you want to be the best. And that's the way to eliminate your competition, is to be the best, and that's what I want to see happen.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure Mr. Kirby, you're next, not competition.
Thank you. I think that we have to, as a public school system, have to present and put our best foot forward, and we have a good foot to put forward. The teachers that we have are the most experienced, the most trained, probably in the state. We have excellent facilities, and we offer after-school programs that are top-notch that the charter schools cannot. And so we're competitive. I think we can be competitive in these ways as well. My daughter is taking Spanish this year in middle school, and the students that she's competing against that came from the charter schools are no farther ahead. And so I think the perception of the charter school, which I must say I'm not in favor of, the perception that they're so far ahead is often not realistic. We offer a good product, and I think we ought to promote that.
I think I agree with you, David. Going out and speaking out with parents, the top issues they feel makes them go out and take their kids to charter schools: location, number one, transportation, the classroom sizes, as well as electives. So when we cut programs, in the schools due to lack of resources, that drives, families to take kids out of the public school system. So we need to improve on those. We need to have, better system that, gets our kids transported, not for 30 minutes or more, but we need good transportation system, and the location's got to work for the parents. That's the most important thing. I think Duluth Public School has great teachers. They're very passionate. They want to teach and impact some great knowledge, to our children. I have 2 kids at Leicester, and they're doing really good. And the reason why that is, it's a great location for them. It's very easy for me, and they're doing really good, like I said. But we can improve that, by having community trust, having community buy-in, to get our kids, back enrolling into Duluth Public School. Also, we need to improve. Okay, I think my time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rockridge Elementary and Central High School sites have gone unsold for years, straining district finances. Starting with you, Ms. Sanstead, do you have some thoughts on a strategy to finally get these properties sold?
I can start, but I think it might be Mr. Martell's turn.
Well, it certainly can be, but
Okay. In terms of, repeat the last line of the question there.
well, do you have some thoughts on a strategy to get these properties sold?
So, I think that the school district needs to do a reevaluation. Whether it happens now or 6 months from now, the properties are not selling. And if they haven't sold by the time I'm on the board, I would ask that we get together with some creative thinkers, with the real estate experts, as well as anybody else who has some brilliant idea they think for the school sites, and to look at all the options and to figure out what's best for the school district. Are we going to be able to sell them in a different way? Do we need to market them differently? Does something else need to happen? But we have to look at this creatively, because it hasn't worked thus far.
Thank you. According to my lineup, Ms. Oswald, you're next, followed by Ms. Bennett.
I think that definitely we may need to adjust the price. Obviously not in the market right now. $10 million for Central isn't selling. I also think we need to consider our marketing strategy, in that maybe we need to market more nationally, in different ways. I agree with Nora that we need to start thinking more outside the box of uses for those buildings. And I also believe that we could probably, have a realtor use those buildings while we have them, because they're just sitting there as vandalism targets right now. So why not, raise some revenue by allowing people to rent rooms, or rent pieces, or rent an auditorium, those sorts of things. So there are lots of ways to generate some revenue to cover the expenses while we have them, and I think we need to consider those options.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett, followed by Mr. Kirby.
Being that I'm only one person on this board, and it would weigh just as equally across the board as everybody, I think along with what everybody's talking about, the strategy in doing that, and and all options, figuring out all options in ways that we haven't already done. Ask further, think harder, and work harder on how to get that done. And also maybe some ideas about other nonprofits and other organizations or companies that are here. What could they buy? Community together, get it together, combine whatever, and do that. So just thinking bigger and outside the box kind of thing along the strategy and moving that stuff. So thank you.
Mr. Kirby.
Yes, I think that the board or the district does have a committee working on this in conjunction with other local government agencies and with business interests, and this is all good. I have Kenwood School in my district, and I've talked to many people as I door knock, and they're very interested in being involved in this. So whatever is done, the community has to be involved in what's done with these properties, and it has to be transparent. On the other hand, we want to be fiscally responsible, and it's a difficult time in the real estate right now, and although it's improving, we can be hopeful for this. But I think that there are some things being done by the district with local agencies and other government agencies which will help.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Follow up on Mr. Martell.
Yeah, I agree. There are some initiative roles, some work done by the district right now to attract buyers for those buildings. But it is important to note that we need to make an extra effort, to sell those, because we're putting money into those buildings to maintain it each year. And the amount of money that goes into those buildings could be going to resources, to developing teachers' skills in the district. So we need to make that extra effort. I know the board are talking about it, and we need to do more of that talking to get those buildings sold.
Mr. Martell.
I'm glad to hear that people are open to options. That's one of the problems that's been in the board meeting for some time. Other ideas haven't been let into the discussion. In regard to the central property, I just think we should consider an option immediately, and that is to stop trying to sell it in this market. I think we should lease the property out now. If we start tearing down buildings, which they've been talking about, trying to sell in parcels, we won't net any profit. We're only going to net $4.7 million on the $10 million sale. So I just think it's a bad idea. I think we should lease it out, find a good tenant for 10, 20 years. We'll probably be in a better market if we decide to sell it then. We can sell it. If not, we can look at other uses for that property. I think we might be glad that we have that property yet, rather than going out and looking for a prime property in the middle of the city to rebuild schools. I don't think we should have ever gotten rid of it to begin with in a city 30 miles long. So I think it's great to hear that we've got other options, or people open to other options now, and I certainly think we should look at them.
About the disparities east and west, the opportunities in classes that maybe are available at East and Nordine East, and maybe aren't available at Denville and Lincoln Park. How can the district better guarantee a quality education no matter where a student lives? Is it maybe time to redraw boundaries? Ms. Oswald, will begin with you.
Redrawing boundaries is not a good idea, in the sense that it causes families around those boundaries to reconsider their choices. And more often than not, they're choosing to not choose us, but to go out of our district into whatever educational area, a place that they want to. It forces people into a choice. And we don't want them to have to choose. We want them to be happy and satisfied where we are. And I'm sorry, I forgot the first part of the question.
Yeah, talking about bringing back balance.
Balance, of course. East-West equality. Programming is definitely an issue that, with the different enrollments, East is twice as much as Denville, roughly. And we need to balance those enrollments out so we can offer the same opportunities at each place. Even if courses are being, if they both have Spanish 3 classes, because they have more enrollment at East, they're still more accessible to take those classes, because there might be more than one class of it, where Denville would be offering one class, they might be offering 2 or 3 sections of it. And so the availability of it to work into a person's schedule is dependent on the enrollment.
Thank you. Ms. Van Ness.
It's a question I hear on the doors quite often about the whole city as a whole, about how the divide and conquer kind of thing. And I have to address it all the time. The different issues out east are different issues out west, and right down the city, people don't think they matter. And that's huge, huge, huge issues in the community right now. The redrawing of boundaries just seems drastic, only because I don't know everything about that, so I can't really speak to that. But it just seems like that would make no sense to anybody, and to our kids who are already struggling. I don't think we need that kind of structure to happen for them. And then, yeah, I see the balance in East and West. My kids we live out west in Denville and Lincoln Park and Piedmont and different things. I think we need to get some ITV stuff happening, where if there's something going on at East or something going on at Denville, we got technology for that stuff. Our kids got cell phones. Oh my goodness, I never had that. So that stuff is happening. We can do this. But we need to think creatively. We need to get out of this little box and think bigger.
Thank you. Mr. Kirby?
Thank you. I agree with Renee. I think that changing boundaries is fraught with great difficulty in this city. I think we need to provide equal opportunities, but this may involve a lot of compromise, both for students, for teachers, and for administrators. We have online courses available. This could be it. Could be part of the solution. We don't have to provide exactly the same courses at each school. There may be, we may have to think of the schools as having different focuses. And East can be different than West, which is fine, but all of the opportunities should be available to people from both sides of the city. But again, I don't think that redrawing boundaries is probably the first choice I would have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe in equal opportunity for both schools. That's very important. But right now, East has the most amount of students going to school there, and that means more resources thrown in that school. Fortunately, Denfeld has about 900 students there, which means limited resources. But still, we need to advocate for equal opportunities. Redrawing boundaries is not a good option at this point because it's going to confuse a lot of parents. We need to invest in getting community lions, because when we have community lions, we have parents bringing children back to each schools, either East or Denfeld. And that's the number one thing, having trust in the community to get the kids back into school, enrolling. And when we do that, we have more resources and we have classes that are available to them.
Thank you. Mr. Martell?
Well, I have to say this right out. Obviously, this is another failure of the Red Plan. One of the biggest selling points was that it was going to create equitable education across the whole city. Obviously, that hasn't worked. How do we solve the problem now? I don't think that moving the boundaries at this point is a good idea either. It's going to cause a lot more disruption, and the demographic studies of the Red Plan are so inaccurate. It's going to be difficult to change that boundary and make it work. But it does show, in my opinion, a failure of priorities. I just don't think the money's been going where it needs to go. It comes down to resource allocation. We have to allocate those dollars out there, and when you're giving out raises that you can't afford, the payroll for the district has jumped another $3 million this year instead of going into the classrooms. Nearly all the levy money has been lost in the payroll increases in the last couple of years rather than going into the classrooms. I just think we need a new board that focuses more on resource allocation, getting that money into the classrooms, and particularly in the Little's Western schools.
Thank you. Ms. Stanstead?
When I attended the school board's education committee meeting last week, the principals from East and Denfeld were there, and they presented on the different offerings at each school. And I was surprised at the amount of similarity. I was expecting to hear major differences, but there really weren't. And the few things that were offered at East and not at Denfeld, and vice versa, were classes that I didn't have the opportunity to take when I was in high school. So I think that the schools are actually doing a pretty good job offering good classes to our high schoolers. I think the high schoolers need more time to take classes. I think adding the 7th period back in would be very helpful for that. I also think that there's a perception issue. Going back to this, I think that there is, I'm running in District 3, and I've talked to folks from Chester Park all the way over to Piedmont, and this middle of the city is unsure where they want to send their kids to high school. And I think that we as a board need to work on that in terms of improving the perception and really highlighting the advantages of our high schools and making them excellent and showing them off as the great schools that we want to send our kids to.
Thank you. Let's talk for a minute about a very troubling societal issue, and that's the issue of bullying. Last year, the Duluth District adopted a new bullying policy. Yet this past fall, we saw the tragic results of bullying. How do you think the district can best address this issue? And Ms. Van Eck, we'll start with you.
The bullying policy, I'm dealing with that right now with my little 9-year-old at Piedmont. She got her hair cut by somebody, a kid that sits next to her. So how I dealt with that was I emailed everybody, the principal, the teacher, the advisor, and said, this is what I want, 1, 2, 3. I want her to be moved immediately, then I want to have a discussion, I want cultural competence, I want these things, I need them addressed. So I took accountability to what happened in the school, and then I also talked to the family about, I hope our children can have a relationship, because this is just an incident that happened. And she was bullied last year, doesn't mean she's bullied now. So I deal with that regularly, and to get in there and to refocus and really apply the concepts that the kids are expected to live by in the school system.
Thank you. Mr. Kirby, your thoughts on bullying?
Well, excuse me, as you mentioned, the district has a newly developed policy which was revised, I think, this past summer. It was developed in conjunction with community input and based on a state program. Very simply, I think that we need to see that this program is in place and works, and if it doesn't, to fix those parts that don't work. And if it is working, hold the people accountable who are responsible for making it work.
Thank you, Mr. Overshed.
I spoke with Bill recently, and I just thanked him for the initiative that's going on, which is the Think Kids initiative that addressed the bullying issue. But I think what's been going on recently is beyond bullying. It goes to stereotype, microaggression, and some racism in the school system. We need to address those. It's very important that we, extend some opportunities to our teachers to learn cultural competency skills and how to deal with that, how to see those when that happens in the classroom. That's very important. Recently, I spoke with Dr. Rocher as well as Cruz, and they're, I think, working with the district on adopting the CMJ curriculum to help address those issues, but we need to go beyond that. This is a very, very important issue. It is something that we need to look more in detail into because it affects every kid, it affects parents, and that's one of the reasons why parents also take kids out of the school to either homeschool them or also to take them to a charter school or a school that really caters to students.
Thank you. Mr. Martell, followed by Ms. Sanstead.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I think administration has been trying awfully hard, and I want to give them credit on that. There's always room for improvement here, and there certainly is here. Recently, I returned to my hometown, and I ran into someone who intimately knew a family that used to be bullied when I was in school. I remember them. I don't exactly remember why they were bullied. They dressed a little differently, but I do remember it, and I was stunned by the fact that even this many years out, they were still affected by that and what effect it had on their lives. So these kids are, they're wards of the district while they're in the schools. We have an obligation to provide a safe environment, and we also have to be worried about litigation, just like the corporate world. We have to adjust to the modern world. But primarily, it's a mission of education. A child just isn't going to learn as well if that child is afraid, and we have to protect every child and give every child full opportunity. And I would advocate for zero tolerance, as close as we can get to that.
Thank you. Ms. Sanstead?
This is a complicated question, and as someone who's had some experience in education, I think that looking to the best practices is an important element here. I think that when we have high school students reaching out and saying we need more counseling in the schools, we need to give that to them. I think that I also think it's unacceptable to be kicking kids out of school. Kids are in school to learn, and we need to do what we can to ensure that everybody feels safe and is held to high behavior standards, but also is getting a good education. We can't just eliminate kids. So increasing the resources, making sure that kids know they have safe places, that school is a safe place, and allowing students to get help when they need it, and really encouraging that, reaching out to families on both ends of a bullying problem, and getting them involved and invested in talking about how we're going to fix that. We need to invest those resources so that we have safe, welcoming schools.
Thank you, Ms. Apple.
Bullying, it happens. That's the reality of life. We need to be supportive and accountable when it does. I personally, my son, when he was in 6th grade, he was targeted by a student while in swim class and held under the water for at least 30 seconds before the teacher turned around and saw the child holding him under the water. And I was involved in that process of the discipline process with that. We need to be transparent with what happens in those cases and involve both parents. I also believe we have to be proactive in preventing it in the first place. And there are a number of programs that are in the works and through the bullying policy, but there's also the Clayton Jackson McGee curriculum that's already been adopted but not used in the high schools. And I'd really like to advocate for that. There's the new Spirit program that is starting up at Denfeld. There's a informational session about that tomorrow night at Denfeld, and that's run by the Department of Justice, along with other things and other contributions by other community members.
Thank you all. The achievement gap between white students and students of color continues to be a challenging issue in Duluth as elsewhere. We were promised improvement with passing the levy. I'm curious, as candidates, are you pleased with the progress we've made? What more has to be done? Mr. Kirby, we'll begin with you, sir.
Well, I think that, first of all, as you mentioned, this is not a problem that is unique to Duluth, and if I had an answer, I could make $1 million tomorrow. I think that we need to acknowledge that it's an issue and acknowledge that many of the factors that contribute to it are beyond the reach of the school district, mainly poverty. To the degree that the school system can work with city council and other government agencies to help alleviate poverty and its impact on the schools would be helpful. My reading and research on this subject has indicated that there are some schools that are called turnaround schools, and these schools and these classrooms have certain things in common. They have high expectations for students. We can certainly do that. They have teachers who are caring and committed to their students. This takes small classrooms and more money to do this, but we can certainly work towards that. And it has opportunities, or these classrooms have opportunities for students to participate in their own education and direct that, and we can work with this too. But again, that takes smaller classes in schools and money.
Thank you. Mr. Obj.
Well, achievement gap is a very big issue in Duluth schools. It is something that's close to home. It's not necessarily something that we want to generalize and say it's a state's issues or issue that we shouldn't look into closely. It's very, very important. What I want to point out is we need more representatives, more mentorship in the school system. I think Bill House represents, folks who work for the American Indian students, and when you see it in the stats, American Indian students are doing much better than African American students. So we need to have representative for all students in the schools, and try to develop a curriculum that works better for some certain students. In learning, some folks learn differently than the others. So we need to develop more curriculum for those folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martell.
But I agree with Charles. It is a very serious problem in the Duluth public schools, and from what I've heard out door to door, one thing that people of color want are more model teachers, more people of their races in the schools. I think that's very important, and I don't think that we've been able to chip away enough money, and I'm not one that normally throws money at things, as anyone knows, but in this case, I think we need more money directed towards this. Only a couple $100,000 of the levy has been directed towards it. The red plan was supposed to produce all these savings. That was part of the reason they went around the vote. It was supposed to ultimately close the achievement gap. Obviously, that hasn't worked. But it does come down to resource allocation again, and we need to find the resources to put towards this almost intractable problem that we've been going backwards with instead of forwards with. It's very important, I think.
Thank you, Ms. Sandsted.
Well, share with you what's working well at, I think I lost my
What's working well at Myers-Wilkins Community School is they started with a book called Teaching with Poverty in Mind. And this was selected by the principal, and all the teachers read it together, and they took it chapter by chapter and looked at the things that David mentioned in terms of what has worked around the country in terms of closing the achievement gap. And that is caring teachers, that is smaller classes, that is cultural competency, that is music and art and movement, and those types of things. And I am really excited to see some funding at the state to expand our community school model beyond Myers-Wilkins. And I think that that is going to be a good step in working on the achievement gap. But I think we really need to focus on making a great environment and education for our students and less on the test scores. But I do think that those scores will definitely be improved if we are able to provide that support and the best learning environment for our kids.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oswald.
By the district's own admission, with the latest round of test scores, they said that the student groups that are doing well are accelerating their learning and doing even better, while the other student groups are dragging behind. That just shows that the people that are learning are still learning great, and those that aren't catching up as fast as they need to. I have a problem with this because I worked on the Race, Culture, and Achievement Gap Summit in 2005 with Cruz Mendoza, and we organized this, and I was the district resource when I was working as an AmeriCorps Vista within the district to put this on, and we had over 200 parents come from marginalized groups and people of color, and all these parents had very detailed stories of what they wanted to see. We need parent involvement, we need relevant curriculum that speaks to them so they know what to learn and how to learn it, and they're engaged. Equity and fairness, anti-racism training, and staff development. Those are the keys, and they've been around since 2005.
Thank you. Ms. Annette?
Thank you. So the achievement gap work, yes, huge, huge issue, of course, and I'm a product of that. Historical trauma runs deep within my blood because of history. However, learning styles, that's an issue. That's like, I learned different in experiencing that. For instance, in math, when there was culture centers here in the district long ago, I would apply keyboard to counting, to math, and I remember the colors of the beads to the numbers specifically. That connected it. And if I wasn't understanding something, I could take a break when they had the sage and different stuff around. And there was always cultural music, beading, dancing, like we would dance around that little room. I swear people thought we were, I don't know what we were doing, but it really, really stuck to me when we had the availability of different culture centers to apply. What does that mean? What does that word mean? Can you tell me what that word means? So I would go there with questions like that, and it helped me to apply it directly back. So that's just humongous, and it will take forever, but thank you.
Well, we'll get to it with the opportunity with some closing remarks, but let's move on to the issue of standards. And Ms. Sansett, I think you talked about testing. Let's expand on that a bit. Are Duluth schools teaching to the test too much? Do you see changes necessary with standardized testing? Mr. Oberge, I think we'll start with you and then move on to Mr. Martell.
I think I just read data that states something specific, and it says this data does not show a number for student of colors. So, and this is something I read from the Duluth public school system, and I had that too. I think some students perform well to testing, and some don't. So we need to find a system that works for everyone. So having an equity system across the board. And for me, I learn differently than someone else. So we need to find a different system. Test scores are good. And we have the Title I funds that helps students with learning better, and some percentage of that Title I funds is for the community that helps, involve parents and involve different entities in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Martell, followed by Ms. Sansett.
Well, this is kind of a tough one, of course, and I want to give a lot of credit she pointed out some troubles with Laura Mack, and I think she possibly even saved the district from a lawsuit because clearly there were some issues with them teaching to the test there and not teaching some subjects. And we've aligned our curriculum now with state standards, and I think that was, I think Alana deserves a lot of credit for pointing out that problem. We need some standards. Obviously, we have to have some way to measure it, but I do think there's some over-testing. I think we should reevaluate how we assess, but it is a difficult thing. We definitely need testing as a tool. There's no question about it, and I think there's a lot of value in testing, and wouldn't want to eliminate testing, but I think we should take another look at it and whether or not we're putting too much emphasis on the tests and spending too much time worrying about tests.
Thank you, Ms. Sampson.
You know, my kids are not in school yet, but what I'm hearing from other parents is not necessarily that the teachers are spending too much time preparing for tests, but that their kids are over-tested. So fewer tests, I think, is an essential goal for us. And at the same time, we need to look at standards, you know, making sure kids are learning and making sure each individual child is making progress. But I think this goes back to, especially at the elementary level, ensuring that we are allowing all different types of learners to enjoy the day and find something they like to get them really engaged in the school. And that is, as discussed, the music, the movement, dancing, art, all those things, rather than focusing on the basics of getting to the test.
Yes, we are teaching to the test a lot, and we need to because those MCA scores are very important. However, you need to remember that there are state standards in all subjects, and those standards are being ignored overall when you're just focusing on the math and the reading. Yes, thanks for the shout out there, Lauren. I was the one that helped get the curriculum aligned because we were lacking in social studies and science curriculum. And we weren't going to address that as a district until 2017, which speaks directly to the achievement of our students because that would have been 3 or 4 more years of our students not getting what they needed to perform well. And in order to perform well on the tests, all the tests from the state are aligned to the state standards, and if we're not teaching to the state standards with curriculum that, you know, with social studies curriculum that ended with Bill Clinton, and now it doesn't, thank goodness, that, you know, our kids aren't going to do well. So it's all interconnected, and in order for us to be the best school district we can be, we need to have good curriculum that's current.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Kirby. Oh, excuse me, Ms. Van Ness next.
I agree with a lot what Alana said about it all being interconnected. It's all interconnected. All the different things that are going into what children are dealing with at home if they're not being fed, right down to the test. Why would they even think about this test if they're not being fed or if they're getting beat up? Literally, that's the real deal. So teaching to the test and talking to people at the doors, they are just not happy about that, and they want to figure out a way, and they're invested. How can I help you? How can we help? And that's what I hear a lot at the doors, and people or parents are talking about that. People on the street just running up to me, what do you know about this, and I'm like, and so I'm trying to talk to them, and they just don't like the teaching to the test thing. Taking that in and moving forward and knowing my own experience about my foster children that are native and they don't test well. We all don't test the same. So we need to figure out something else about how we want to do this. And I know this is a state, right? And I know that's really difficult and there's no immediate easy answers to these things. But I think a community like we are kick butt community. I think we can figure something out and move forward. Let's keep moving forward.
Thank you. And Mr. Kirby?
My children thought there was maybe there were too many tests in elementary school. That has not been their complaint or observation in middle school. However, I think we have to constantly evaluate this, being aware that many of the funds we receive from state and the feds are dependent on doing these tests and doing this testing. Test scores are not the only means of evaluating student success, and they're not the only way that we evaluate teacher preparedness and teacher ability. I think we need to make sure that parents know that we have these other ways of evaluating people and give them this evaluation. However, I think that in a general sense, if we can do less testing, that would be good. I'm not sure that the teachers my children had have been teaching to the test, however.
Thank you. My final question, and then we'll have Roger will wrap this up. My final question is simple but extremely open-ended. I want to ask each of you how, as a school board member, you would be a champion for racial justice issues. Mr. Martell, we'll start with you, sir.
Well, first of all, as I said, I would push for getting more teachers of color into the schools. I think the models are really, really important. And I don't think we have an adequate number in the Duluth public schools at this point. I think that would be very, very important. Everything comes down to money. I mean, I've heard things said here today that sound great, but you know, how do you pay for it? I think you have to sort of put yourself on the line for resource allocation. You've got to push for those funds to go where they need to go. And I would be a strong advocate for more money. As I've said, I'm not one to normally throw money in a given direction and thinking that just throwing money at it solves it. But this problem does need attention. It does need more money than we're currently giving it, and I would be a strong advocate for that.
Thank you, Ms. Sandstead.
So the question is, how would I be an advocate for racial justice in the district? And what I have done through this campaign is try to connect with people and really get one-on-one conversations with all sorts of folks who are invested in the schools. And that's, you know, talking with parents at National Night Out, meeting with different groups of folks. And I want to ensure that people know that I'm accessible and that I'm listening. And, you know, whether or not that's attending the screening of the Mother's movie concerning the parents of color who had students in the district and had some difficult experiences, and following up on that, and ensuring that people's voices are being heard, as well as advocating for programs that will increase the level of respect and justice within our district.
Thank you. Ms. Oswald.
The meeting of the Mother's movie put on by Classy Dudley, or produced by her, she pointed out the 5 moms who had difficult experiences in Northland schools, and that was the smallest snapshot of what happened 10 years ago at the Race Culture and Achievement Gap Summit. I had 200 parents with those exact same stories, and here it is 10 years later, and Classy produced a film echoing those same things. We made a recommendation report at that time in 2005, and our group has tried to push it through, and it just fell by the wayside. It has very direct ways to address the parents' concerns and issues, and so I believe we need to follow through with what we've already known. We know and have a lot of information about things already out there, and we just have to implement them. We need to keep the dialogue open with stakeholders, and we need to involve them in the conversation.
Thank you. Ms. Vanette.
So we're all in this together, all of us. Yes, there's different divides and different things that happen, but when it comes down to it, it's about the kids, it's about the focus, it's about what's going on here. And yeah, different kids get treated different way, and I'm a product of all of this. Yes, moving forward. What can we do moving forward together? That's an example to be set, and I'm an example to that. When I went to a board meeting, I thought, there's nobody that looks like me or my kids. Oh my goodness. Okay, what am I going to put myself out there? This is exactly what I'm doing, is putting myself out there, and it's not always the easiest thing to do. So when we're talking about racial justice, it's about everybody. It's about all of us. We got to do this together, or it's just not going to happen as easily or at all sometimes. So understanding that and coming from that, I think being that person that can be talked to or talked with about these things, and knowing what I've been through myself and our kids go through, that we can all do this. It's about everybody. So moving forward, I would hope we do that.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
Well, I think that promoting cultural competency and valuing diversity is something that we all can do, and that the school district and the board should promote. We have to be aware of our own cultures and understand the differences that make each of us and each student unique. I think that getting teachers and administrators of different color is a great idea. Research has shown that most teachers tend to teach in schools that they grew up in or in areas close to where they grew up in, and I think that's true for Duluth as elsewhere. So if we're going to do this, we have to grow our own. And perhaps this is a long-term solution, but working with students of color to go into education, working with the local teacher training institutions to promote this is a good idea. It's a long-term solution, but it's one that will bring people of color into the school system.
Thank you. Mr. OBJ.
I'm very thankful that I see some administrations in the house today and some current school members. And if anything, you guys can understand that we need more diverse teachers in the school, in the school. Also, we need a diverse voice in the school board, just like myself, so we can, start up this conversation that relates to diverse individuals in the community. We need to implement what we already have in the school system. The Think Kids and continuous improvement addresses issues that covers diverse individuals in the community. We need to implement that. We need to work more on what we have, and also add on the curriculum and work with mentors, work with individuals in the community who know more about these issues. It is very important. We need more mentors, and I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, candidates, I'd like to thank you all for your very respectful discussion this morning, and again, thank you for your willingness to serve. Good luck on the campaign trail. Let's take a minute, each of you, to give us your final thoughts. Ms. Sandsted, we'll start with you.
Well, I think I've been delighted with the ideas that are coming out of this room, and I'm really excited about some of the new thoughts and direction that we can hope for with the school board. And as a parent with a choice here in the next few years for my kids, I want to send my kids to public school. I want to send them to an excellent school in my neighborhood where they're going to get an education that will bring them love for learning. And whether or not their strengths are in reading or soccer or music, I want them to feel comfortable and safe. And I want to ensure that we have leadership that is valuing that and celebrating the great things that are happening in our schools and moving forward and having great partnerships with the city, with the county, to ensure that we are bringing in families and serving them quite well as a district.
Thank you. Ms. Oswald?
My education passion developed when I did the Race, Culture, and Achievement Gap Summit. It was life-changing for me to hear these poignant stories of many, many parents having issues, and I wanted to do something about it. That's what inspired me to get my teaching license in 2008, and why I do what I'm doing, and why I continue to advocate for whoever needs help. I want them to know that I will take them by the hand and lead them, because many parents are frustrated with what needs to happen. It's why I became a teacher, why I'm an advocate, why I am who I am, and I want to know that everyone to know that all kids matter and all kids deserve a relevant education for them. It doesn't matter what the whole group wants, it's about individualized education, because parents will choose to go to other places where they can get an education that applies to their children. And that's what we need to do to become the best school we can.
Thank you. Ms. Van Nett?
Thank you. So as I talked about earlier, I think it's a big issue. It's a big community thing. We pull together and figure out how to do things and get our focus back to where our children are and what needs to happen, and just take a line to that and get people out to really care about what's going on in the community, make the connections happen, make all these things collaborate and effortlessly work together. So that's my hope in moving forward, and I'm excited to be this experience and getting on the board and helping with the children that need the help in the community. Because like I said before, I'm not going to be here forever. I know that we all aren't going to be here. We need to figure out how our kids are going to be here and what they're going to do, how they're going to move forward. So we just need everybody on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
Thank you all for coming and listening to us, and I must say I've learned a lot from listening to my fellow candidates. I have lived in the district I hope to serve for 18 years, and during that time I have developed a lot of relationships with people in the community, people in the schools in my district, and in the district as a whole, and I find these will be very useful as if I'm on board. I have a broad background in education, as I mentioned before, and I think this will also help on the board. My career in medicine revolved around listening to people and dealing with a variety of educational issues and social issues, as well as medical issues. These all seem to be interconnected, and as the events at East High School and the anxiety that students and parents are feeling becomes more apparent, I find this very useful in my background, and this will be useful. So I am excited, and like these others, I found the experience of running for school board to be much more than I expected.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea.
I believe in public education. I have my kids in Leicester Park Elementary, and they're doing great. I think we have an opportunity to improve on the public education system in Duluth. We have a chance to do that with fresh-minded individuals that's going to be coming in, to change the dynamic in the school board. That's key in moving forward. We need community buy-ins. We need to invest in our community and make sure they know to come back to this district, so we can have more resources and have more trust in the school as a whole. My experience as a social worker lent me that experience, to go into the board, and work with all individuals, because I think that starts from the board. We need to work together as a school board member to make policies that affect the children, because we need to bring money back into the to the classroom and work to support the teachers. It's very essential that we vote change, and work with folks that are willing to work with the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Final thoughts, Mr. Martell?
As I've gone door to door, I've heard often people complaining that government hasn't been concerned enough with the basics. I think there's some legitimacy to that concern. We've spent a lot of money here on the last 10 years, $1.5 billion actually, between operations and facilities, and I just don't think enough of it has gone where it really matters, and that's into the classrooms. I'm a strong advocate for public education. I think it's the heartbeat of democracy. There's a lot of options out there now. You can't just do what you want and expect citizens to send their children to your schools. You have to get competitive, and I think that we need a new direction on the board. I think we've been stuck in the same right now for about 10 years, and I hope you'll consider that on November 3rd. And I thank you for coming out this morning and listening to this discussion. I think it was a very good discussion.
Thank you very much, and we'll leave it there. Chuck, thanks to you and the Duluth News Tribune for your support of the candidate forums. I'd like to give a special thanks to our friends here at the Playhouse Underground. Their very gracious willingness to host these candidate forums. I'd like to thank our broadcast partners who are here this morning to spread the word beyond the audience here and draw your attention that over the next several weeks we'll have additional candidate forums. Next Wednesday, the district council candidates, followed by the following Tuesday, council at-large candidates. Finally, on the 13th, mayoral candidates, all back here at the Playhouse Underground. Thanks again for being here this morning.